Welcome back from the commercial break together with retired Major Awick Pollar. We continue with our topic of discussion, economic and political analysis of Uganda post-independence. And we rightly referred to all that took place, and we are looking at one arm of the politics and another arm of the economy of the country. It was a good explanation that you granted, the information you shared with the viewers, that at least out of whether 100% of transfer of power from one leader to the other than the military overthrow of one government to the other, Uganda should take note that by 1980, the transfer of power to Obote II, it wasn't out of a military confrontation. Instead, the military handed over power to the other, indeed to Obote, the president, the late Obote. May he so rest in eternal peace. Having said that, we will be looking, and I bring it back to you, to share with the viewers as we go through this analysis. It is believed some countries, as you were referring to Pan-Africanism and as well global politics, some countries which are at the same level with Uganda economically, producing agricultural production, whose level were at our same level, and even in other areas, like if I talk about that, referring to cotton, that was our cash crop, and that was, a main source of raw material to produce our own garments. Some countries include Singapore, include Malaysia. They are far ahead of us. Much as we have a different history, but we would like to project to look at the pillar of NRM being one of it being socio-economic transformation, and compared to our other countries that got independence in 1962, whether we are fitting to be where we expected to be.
It's difficult to know where we expected to be. You can only rough estimate with our peers who were at that time, where we were together. But it is a sheer projection if we are to guess, because we could even choose to have been over and above those other countries, but here we are. And also I like to say that apart from the examples that you have cited, China got their independence, so to say, in 1949 when Mao Zedong took over. Now we are slightly like 13 years older than China, but you can see that China developed.
1949.
Yes, you can see that China has developed to that extent to the second biggest economy in the world. So in other words, the truth is we have not moved at the pace that we should move. That one is unaccepted. It is should be a very acceptable position that we haven't moved the way we have moved. We should move. And maybe at some point you will ask me why we have not.
Yeah.
So we haven't moved as much. But I think you had asked me a question, the achievements so far. It should be covered at this moment. That this post-independence, what have we got? In other words, if somebody who left Uganda in 1962, who knew Uganda very well, knew Kabale, knew Moroto, knew Arua, knew Mbende, knew everywhere. If this person came back, if he left Uganda and came back now, what would he see? What are the developments that Uganda has got? Assuming such a person had gone to planet Jupiter and came back. So this is what we should be looking at, that since independence, have we achieved anything? So this, in my opinion, this is what that Mr. Okello or Mr. Tumusime see. If Mr. Okello went to planet Jupiter in 1962 and came back today, or Mr. Tumusime went to planet Jupiter and came back today, this is what he would see. First, he would be happy to note that Uganda is Uganda that he left. Remember I told you, it has not disintegrated, it is Uganda.
And no part of our boundary has been reduced.
He would be very happy that Uganda is that, because
sovereignty
this
aspect.
Mr. Okello will see that many countries are not what they are. I dare tell you that in Europe, there are some countries of 5,000. Andorra. There's some countries like Liechtenstein, 37,000. Macedonia, 150,000. The only country in Europe which has survived in a multi-community is Switzerland, where you have Swiss Italian, Swiss German, Swiss French, and Swiss one. There are 4, okay? Here in Uganda, I wouldn't be surprised even in this room, we have what we could call 3 countries. The Republic of Kigezi, the Republic of Lango, and I don't know, you are the Republic of what? Another one. Now, such Tumusime...
The Republic of Uganda.
Bunyoro. That would be the, so, Okello or Tumusime who went to Jupiter and came back, he would be happy to see. One of the achievements is, those of you who remain on earth, Uganda is still Uganda. 2, in the infrastructure level, we have moved. Right now, Uganda, that this man or woman who went to Jupiter, Mars would come and find out, is that we have all our borders are joined by tarmac road. Kenya alone has like 4 tarmac roads entering, including one from after Maga, where Obote escaped to Kenya using, do you know that Obote escaped to Kenya when Lutwa took over using a path? He just, after Maga, passed through a path, some small bush, up to Kenya. That is now a tarmac road to Kenya. Going to Tanzania, you go by tarmac. This was not the case. Going to Rwanda, you have 2 tarmac to join Rwanda. This was not the case. Going to Congo, you go through tarmac. Going to South Sudan, you go through 2 tarmac roads. So infrastructurally, we have gone a long way, although a lot need to be desired. In governance, we have gone. We have come
I would like us to first critically analyze the infrastructure. And we look at the infrastructure we would have wanted to have. We will not, cast ourselves to be having nothing, but we compare the infrastructure as it's a part of a discussion which we could want to have. I will talk about the social infrastructure, especially the health centers. Personally, I do appreciate that the health centers, the medical facilities or health facilities we had by the then time, and even in the early 1989, the late 1989, I refer to my sub-county Hamugwa, where there was a very small dispensary. It was a dispensary unit. Now it's a health center for. Leaving that achievement aside and looking at where Kenya is, that almost got the independence the same time, and India, that was equally a colony, where we are taking our patients for treatment and paying a lot of money, the infrastructure, health infrastructure that can contain the health challenges of Ugandans is still lacking, and we continue asking ourselves, why are we not able to match with that game of the global attention of attending to our people in terms of providing them health care?
Okay. First, you cut me before I could finish the road infrastructure.
Okay.
I'm cognizant that I will answer the health infrastructure. I'm saying if that Ugandan who went to planet Jupiter came back, he will realize that by the time he left, there were 3 bridges across River Nile. River Nile cuts Uganda almost across. It's a river that divides Uganda straight from the bottom to the top. Now, that person who went to the other planet left on a bridge on Jinja, he left a bridge in Karuma, and he left a bridge in Pakwach. Those were the only 2 bridges that person left. Now, when this person comes back...
2 bridges?
3. When this person comes back, we have added a bridge in Jinja, we have added a bridge in Kayunga, we have added a bridge in Bunyoro actually, River Nile, when you follow Masindi, a big 4-lane road, tarmac road, which crosses the River Nile up to. So if this person came back, he will say, hey, you people, I left 3 bridges, you have added 4, now we have 7. So those are the infrastructural level. Now this takes me to the health. The health infrastructure is also attained.
Of course, we've not talked about roads.
Doctor-patient ratio has increased. The number of LC4 centers has increased to a lower level. Now, we have had so many districts, and nearly every district has been built a district hospital. However, this health is still a challenge. Remember, I had hinted on a strong global economy. Did you know that when NRM came to power, NRM had a pro-people policy to the extent that NRM was almost mistaken for a socialist organization, and the world watched it. A socialist organization simply means you are pro-people. You're doing a people-based thing. Now, what these strong economists did was to untwist. In the health sector, for example, they came up with a reform system to say, make people pay for health. They even went as far as saying, make people pay for education. In other words, it was a deliberate policy of reducing social expenditures. And this we had to fight it. NRM had to fight it. Because if you don't, for them they were saying, this thing of making people sleep in Mulago for free, making people eat. Do you know that people are eating food in Mulago? This thing of government serving food in Mulago. Stop it.
It was stopped.
Yes, this was part of the social reform advocated by World Bank and IMF, reduction in social expenditure. And this is why I'm saying, if we talk about this, we should be mindful of global dynamics. Because even if NUP came to power, even if ANT came to power, you'll be met with this. So, despite these global challenges, where they challenge you as a global economy to say, IMF, World Bank said, stop social expenditure. What are these social expenditure? Stop expending in health. Stop expending in education. That is why so many private hospitals and private things came up. It is not a dream or a weakness on the government. It's a global dynamics, including education. That's when you see now private universities, private schools came up, because their policy was stop social expenditure. And they tie it to conditions. If you don't do that, we shall not give you money. These are the things that our viewers deserve to see. Now, despite all that, NRM has endeavored to go into health, including the various layers and centers that you are citing. But that has affected the holistic approach. That's why you are still citing that other
the ability to attend to the health challenges of our citizens. All ordinary citizens and very important people, citizens, especially to contain it within our country, comparing to others who are able to contain it to provide adequate health care. We talk about Aga Khan in here in Kenya. We also talk about India in a number of hospitals. Why is it that, my question as you've given us the background of it, while we appreciate what has been done, why is it that our capacity has not yet excelled to that level? And yet also these countries were colonies.
If you talk of capacity like Aga Khan in Nairobi and India, the capacity, in my opinion, is actually because you have liberalized health, then it becomes a supply and demand question. In other words, these investors in health would only put such investment with a view that they would have clientele. So to put the hospital in India, if you put it in Kampala, talking of the investment,
yes,
would they be able, apart from the few who fly there, would they recover their money? Because IMF World Bank now made it, as I told you, reduce social expenditure. They made it a business. And that is why private schools, private hospitals came up, because it was a deliberate policy for the state to reduce expenditure in social infrastructure. So now, the hospitals that you see in Aga Khan and in India is because they know if they put it there, they're able to recoup, to get profit. If you put one in Nakasero hospital, you grade it to that level. The machines that you put, the experts that you employ, will you get enough money?
Can't the government take it up? Because in this way, as you know, all of us, we are good Ugandans, we would like to the viewers, as we analyze this, to look at the Uganda we want, in the next, whether 5 or 10 years, where we are not getting some of our, whether we call them very important VIPs, very important people, and the ordinary citizen, to pay 500 million, to pay 200 million. The other day, 1 billion, I don't want to talk about the specific people because we don't want to make it individual critique. All that money, put it together, the Uganda we want, and which I throw it back to you maybe to give us the projection of where we will be, it would have been able to facilitate the existence of such specialized medical facility.
Doctor, your question is, can't Uganda do it?
Can't Uganda do it?
It can.
Yes.
I know it is expensive, it can. For example, in Mulago, there has now been put a specialized women facility, women hospital. It's believed to be specialized to any global capacity. But remember, the IMF World Bank condition reduce expenditure in social expenditures. The hospital is as expensive, but it is there. It is there. They said, we shall fund you, we shall build it for you, but please reduce expenditure in social services.
Yes,
so it is there in Mulago.
Okay.
There is also this attempt in the Luboa one. The attempt in Luboa that became controversial with this Italian lady was attempt to remedy that, to say, ladies and gentlemen, fellow citizens, we are spending a lot of money abroad. Can we have it in Luboa? But you can see that the status is still debatable. It has kind of not progressed the way it should be, but here it is. So to make it brief, government can do it, and it will do it, but remember, we still have the global economic system tying our hands. I am not so sure that even that one, if it is done, for example, you refer a peasant from Kabale to such a hospital, you would simply have changed the cost of spending on dollars, but spending it here. Why? Because government is untied into the philosophy of reduction in social expenditures, not on health, including school. So this calls for independence, because if you're not economically independent, you can't take such a painful decision. I wish you could figure out the way our ministers of finance and authorities sweat in the World Bank in Washington to negotiate this thing. Such are the questions they put to you. We told you to make the hospital.
So now are we independent if we are still being directly restricted to the extent of not taking our own decision in matters of deciding where to invest and where not to invest?
We are independent politically, but the struggle for our economic independence goes on. That's why some of us are saying, you may not even achieve it as an independent. That's why we're urging for East African community. That's why we're urging for a continent. That's why patriotism, Pan-Africanism is the core principle. Because you have to project it far ahead. You have to project it far ahead. And I'm telling you, if you were to see how the Matia Kasaija suffer in the negotiation room, because the money bag holders are saying, why are you spending on social expenditure? You as a government, you feel you need to protect your people. You feel you need to spend on the hospital, on the health. You feel you need to spend on education. But the bag holders are querying you.
There's a question I'd like to pose to you as we continue with our good discussion. While we're talking about the economic independence, by 1962, these colonialists, the history I studied, as I try to recall, and yourself, I know you are very much more conversant. These colonialists were targeting our natural resources. They took charge of our natural resources. And some who even project or make a comment on the existence of some colonies around, especially in the African context, whether like DRC or even around, the colonialists or these Western partners, development partners, are still interested to be in control and in charge of our gold, in charge of our oil. One of the reasons why we seem not to be progressing well, even economically, and at the end of the day politically, is the ability, the autonomy of our nation to take charge of utilizing our natural resources to the maximum. What is your take, and how can we bridge this gap to take charge of our resources and we get what we want out of our resources, natural resources?
First of all, we should note that as a country we are blessed with many natural resources. We have a good sunshine, good atmosphere. We have the biggest source of fresh water in the world, Lake Victoria. I can assure you, if you went to some countries, their water are more salty than the soup that we eat. They have to go through lots of purification. And like our Lake Victoria, you can pick or boil and drink.
Yeah, straight.
Just boil and drink. We have our forest. We have our great tourism. We have gold. We have other minerals. And we have petroleum, among others. So these are the resources that we have. And we have our human body, our human beings, and
the fertile soils.
And the fertile soil. So these are our resources. Now, and we are a sovereign state. We have power over our resources. However, the challenge now is that to work on these resources, you need the means of production. The means of production are sometimes expensive. Like if you want to extract the oil, you find it expensive. So you need to employ people with the technology. You need to extract it. And this is where the problem comes. It now comes in the negotiation capacity. You call a company. How do you negotiate? Because you have no money to pay them. If we had money to pay them, we wouldn't even negotiate. We'd say, how much do you want for you to do this? We pay them to do it and they go. But now, because you don't have money, you negotiate if you get what will be the sharing ratio. This is now where the problem would come from, the sharing ratio, because you have no cash to pay them. Even if you got cash, you'll have to get huge cash from a bank, and that bank will get lots of loan on it. So, then we have to exercise sovereignty in terms of negotiation. We have seen countries which have negotiated well, Ghana, Nigeria, and others. Others have negotiated poorly. We do believe that we can get best practices from the mistakes that they made and the good that they did. We pick from the good negotiating aspects, the aspects that they negotiated well, and the aspects that we feel they negotiated poorly, we discard it. So, as far as our resources and sovereignty is concerned, it's still good news.
Is it good news, Rt.Major?
It is good news that we have the resources.
The question I pose, I'm not contesting that it's not good that we have good news we have resources. To find that we have over 42 mineral resources according to the National Development Plan, which are not being utilized. And in the event of this, those who are economic analysts, they believe that if we're utilizing the 42 mineral resources we invest in utilizing them, even we could find our country not borrowing anybody. And the government efforts to achieve this is where I would like to have the hope.
That is what I'm saying, that you have these resources. Even water. If we decided to say, Uganda, we have good source of fresh water, we are packaging water to sell. Itself, you need resources to be involved in it. And that is now the question. You don't have the resources, the capacity to package this. Packaging water would be our biggest export. Remember, there's a belief that the next Third World War may not be over Ukraine, but the Third World War will be over fighting over a source of fresh water, and we are at the center of it. So, but what I'm saying is, whatever resources that we have, the 42 minerals, you need means of production to turn it into usable goods, to extract it. So you don't have the money and you have to negotiate, and that is it. But all attempts are there. If you look at the National Development Plan, if you look at the Vision 20, nearly all these aspects are targeted. It is a question of execution. We may not do it in one go. Maybe if we do oil, then oil will have its multiplying effect.
Right.
So we target one where we can do it very well, and we do it. And in any case, we're supposed to have oil when 2020, very near, few years to come. Few years to come, 2025. So we are in 2022. We're basically left with 2 years. The third year we are there.
I have a current question which connects to what you've just stated. Is it morally and politically right for the European Union, in a midst when Uganda is an independent country, but to find some, making them resolutions for us, or to the extent of how we are going to use our oil, and making critics either which are realistic or not realistic? What is your take on that in the midst of a country which is independent?
I'm just trying to figure out.
I'll give you 3 minutes as you go for the break.
I'm trying to figure out if African Union sat in Addis, if African Union sat in Addis Ababa and resolved that a project in France should be altered, I think they would think we are mad people. That African Union has sat and observed that.
But if you don't, for them, they are the ones who gives you money. They will tie the knot.
So that's what I was talking about, the economic aspect. I mean, the economic independence.
Yes,
but your question on whether it is morally and politically right, in my opinion, it is not correct. Because if they think it is correct, can we wait a day when African Union observes a coal mining project in France, and African Union pronounces itself that extract of coal in northern France, in Lyon, is wrong. France should not extract that coal in Lyon. He'll say, what's wrong with that? Are you mad? But that is where it is. I talked of economic independence. But I also think we shouldn't be worried about that resolution, because that resolution was non-binding. If you read the text which I read, it observes, it urges. It's not a legally binding document.
So you are putting it right so that we are safe?
Yeah, we are safe.
Okay, let's go.
And Total has disowned it.
Okay, let's go for the commercial break. But I said, indeed, it's still a call for economic independence. And maybe, being our ambassador, I can say, I especially handling all issues relating with external affairs, that matter will be dealt with. And maybe a better investment policy, which will ensure leaders to have the 42 minerals being put utilization, but he's saying the National Development Plan has tried to cater for that. Stay tuned. Let's see you in the next session.